Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Suzy Rosenstein.
Hey there, welcome back to the podcast, Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is all about 6 confusion hacks to help you make important midlife decisions. Today, we're talking specifically about using something I call flower power to help you bust through your confusion when you're in a magnificent spin about making a decision. I'm talking about a super spin. Like when you were little and you were wearing that perfect dress with that skirt that would flare out with a twirl. You loved that skirt. So did I. The thing is that a super spin isn't quite that much fun or pretty, but it does go round and round and round and becomes even more confusing. So we're going there today, and you'll leave with some solid hacks to help you move forward. But first, this episode is sponsored by something I'm pretty excited to tell you about as well. And you know what? It involves a bit of spinning, but the good kind of spin. I want you to spin around and get yourself to Toronto. It's about the upcoming Becoming Bold and Brave retreat, July 12th to 14th. You need to be here, and you need to make this part of your personal regret-proofing strategy in midlife. Here is why. We're going to be focusing on stretching your mind with meaningful coaching to unplug your thinking from what you can't do to what you can do, even at your age. We're going to be stretching your body with super amazing and highly accessible yoga breaks and insights, even if you've never done yoga in your life. And we're going to be stretching your creativity with related art projects that reinforce what you want to create in your life, even if you don't consider yourself artsy or creative. It doesn't matter. This is going to be a warm and intimate personal growth experience with a lot of fun and laughter, delicious food, and connection. If you're interested in learning more, please shoot me an email right away at info@suzyrosenstein.com. So if you want to hang with me and some other amazing women in the middle in Toronto and have this transformation and put yourself first for a change, get cracking. As I said, it'll be a small group experience, and I only have a few more spots available. Send me an email, and I'll send you more information on how to register right away. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with a question. Are you confused? Simple, right? And I'm not talking about being confused about where to go for dinner. I'm talking about spinning out on a bigger type of confusion. Something you just can't make a decision about. Maybe even for months or years. It's a type of thing you're probably asking other people for advice about. You even think about it subconsciously. It's on your mind all the time. But the thing about asking other people, you want to ask them as if someone else has more clarity and ability to see what you're supposed to do. What's the best decision? What's the right decision? Now, I'm not going to argue with you. Making decisions can be challenging sometimes. Being confused can even be a necessary phase for you to go through to get to the other side of the spin. But there's a little problem. As amazing women in the middle, we like to indulge in confusion, and that can really get in the way. Now, let's explore this concept a little bit. Indulging in confusion. Indulge, the word indulge has a couple of meanings. One meaning is to allow oneself to enjoy the pleasure of, like indulging in some ice cream, for example, or indulging in like a 10-hour Netflix binge. Now, the other meaning is becoming involved in, like an activity, typically one that's undesirable or disapproved of, like indulging in gossip or indulging in overspending. So when you think of spinning in confusion, what comes up for you? Do you relate to allowing yourself to be confused? I wonder, with me, I would tend to feel more like confusion was happening to me rather than me having control over it and allowing confusion into my life. What about the other definition? Do you relate to feeling like you're becoming involved in confusion? Again, with me, I would say not really, because as I just mentioned, being confused tends to feel more out of control. Here's the thing. What I've come to understand is that with confusion, just like all other emotions, you really do have more control than you think. There's something interesting about confusion. Logically, confusion feels like a loss, but in reality, there's often a bit of a gain. Not that you're farther ahead, but there's something about being confused that can serve you in some way. Think about it. Being confused seems bad, but often making a decision is actually harder because it kicks off a bunch of other hard things. Confusion or staying stuck is actually easier. Wrap your head around that for a minute. Confusion can actually be easier than making a decision. Even if you're whining and complaining about how confused you are. Even if you're in a spin. A mind loop of confusion, often on autopilot for an extended period of time. In midlife, it is super common to spin out like this because you're probably considering some kind of change or transition, and change can be scary. Better to stay stuck even though it's not logical, at least on the surface. Now, deep down, it's totally logical. Your brain is quite comfortable keeping you as safe as possible. So when you're confused, you're safe. You're not doing anything hard or scary. You're not evolving. You're not moving forward. You're stuck in a super spin. You're probably thinking that you don't know what to do. That's a classic thought that leads to confusion. Maybe you don't know how to do something. That's a close relative to the first common thought. Any which way, the result is you're stuck and you don't have any momentum forward. That's why confusion is indulgent. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't have like a higher purpose, a higher reason. But it does do something. It serves to keep you stuck. So let's play a little bit before we get into the confusion hacks that I talked about earlier. Consider this. Think about why you're confused. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your relationship. Maybe it's your aging parents. Maybe it's your housing situation. Maybe it's something with your kids. Who knows? But you know. You totally know what you're confused about and what might be up with why. A common thing is that you're afraid to make a mistake. You don't want to do the wrong thing. Does this resonate with you? Kind of like the devil you know type of reasoning. This is one of the things that was keeping me confused about leaving my long-term job in my late 40s. I had a lot of seniority, I had 5 weeks vacation, I had a decent salary, and I worked part-time. But I was bored out of my mind and totally stagnant. So stagnant. There was nothing wrong with my job. I was even doing some pretty interesting things, but I was simply there too long. I kept thinking, what if I do the wrong thing? What if this is the best there is? It felt super indulgent to want more than the good job and the good deal I already had and that I had earned by being there so long. I really felt a bit like that game show, Let's Make a Deal, with door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3, and real fear and confusion about getting zonked. The thing is, reality isn't like that. Labeling something a wrong decision is actually subjective. It's a thought. It's the way you're thinking about making the decision and moving yourself out of confusion. It's so interesting when you really get your head around this. Thoughts are optional and subjective. You can think what you want about every part of the decision, and you can decide not to be as confused as you're currently deciding to be. What do you think of this question? What if there are no wrong decisions? What if you thought about your past decisions as what created the path of your life? What brought you here now, and that had value? One option is that you could think about the past and future decisions this way instead. When you think of this perspective, what comes up for you in terms of your confusion now? Another perspective is that instead of thinking about the wrong decision, that it's just out there waiting to get you, you can consider looking at things differently. You can learn to have your own back when you make decisions, and this thought is helpful. Remember, what makes something a wrong decision? Only you deciding that it's wrong. That's what makes it a wrong decision. Okay, here's another idea to consider about confusion. What if the decision you start with is to decide to be less confused? What? Yeah, that's what I said. It is totally possible because the way you might be thinking about confusion now is that it's happening to you. That's how I felt when I was all spinny for 5 years about what to do in my last job. It never occurred to me that I could manage my mind better to actually reduce my confusion and help my forward momentum. You do this by opening yourself up to the idea that you don't have to be this confused. You can think that you're learning to be less confused or that you're excited to figure out what to do. Again, these ideas about setting a different stage for yourself, about the confusion, your experience, it's totally possible. And as I said earlier, you really do have more control than you think. You just have to start believing that. Okay, so now that you have a bit of a broader perspective about being confused in general, let me tell you why it's important to work on decreasing confusion and increasing action. First, ending confusion and making decisions helps you evolve and grow. Now, I know that sounds very Oprah-esque, but it does, right? Pretending that you don't know what to do and then getting stuck in a spin for who knows how long does not. Midlife women feel stagnant a lot. Ending confusion and making decisions also saves loads of time. So that's another reason. Remember, for me, it was 5 freaking years. How long has it been for you? Now, taking action fuels more action. It's very different than confusion. When you take action, it helps you show up in a different way. When you're all consumed with confusion, you're not showing up that way. And that's also opening the door to a lot of other shenanigans. So for some people, these shenanigans include doing things to avoid how uncomfortable you are while you're confused. So that might mean like eating too much, or maybe shopping too much, or drinking too much, those kinds of things. Now, ending confusion and making decisions also makes you feel way more confident. It is so amazing to move forward. It feels amazing, and you feel so much less insecure. It's huge, and you will love it. Highly recommended. So are you convinced? Are you open for some confusion hacks to get you going out of the land of the spin and into the land of action? I call these confusion hacks flower power. Why? Because who doesn't love flowers, right? Who doesn't love flowers? And the acronym FLOWER will help you remember the confusion hack strategies. Let's start with F. F stands for future self. When you're confused, ask yourself what your future self would say to you 10 years from now and why. The thing is, your future self always knows what to do. She has wisdom that can help you now. So ask her. She's just waiting for you to ask her. How would your older and wiser self guide you now? All right, L. L stands for love. When you're all wrapped up in confusion, it's common to be like really hard on yourself. Confusion doesn't bring out your most compassionate self for sure. So a good question to ask yourself is a very simple one. What would love do? How would love help you navigate your way out of confusion and into a decision? O. O stands for options. Do a bit of a thought dump. Brainstorm tons of options. Don't judge them. Just write them down. Really dig deep and consider all kinds of things, even things that you totally want to not even consider. And watch your thinking for self-imposed limitations on your decisions. So maybe you have thoughts about what you should do. Watch for those too. Consider all options, not just two. Another great way to dig around in your mind is to ask yourself, if you started over, would you make the same decision to be where you are again now? So really, really dig into all the options to help get perspective on what really is available. Okay, W. W stands for win-win. And what I mean is to imagine that all options, or if you have it down to two, both options are actually going to turn out amazing. You pick one and you're successful. You pick the other one, you're also successful. You're happy. There's no booby prize. Both options are amazing. This is possible because you're the one who determines that reality. It's not someone out there. It's you. It's your brain. So either way, you can have an amazing life. Now what will you do? All right, that's FLOW. Now we're at E. E stands for end point. Decide that you won't be confused forever because you're going to give yourself a deadline, which is a time or date that your confusion will end. You will likely be resistant to this idea because it's super common to postpone things, but remember, postponing is really just another way to be indulgent. It prolongs the confusion. Making a decision moves you forward. That is the goal you're after. And now R. R stands for regret. Ask yourself if you would regret not doing what you have the opportunity to do. Allow yourself to feel your feelings. Decide if you want to live with that specific regret. One of the most common regrets that I talked about in an earlier episode about the 5 most common regrets of the dying is not allowing yourself to be happier. So really think about this. R stands for regret. Okay, that is it. That's Flower Power in the nutshell. 6 powerful strategies to end your confusion and allow yourself to bloom, to grow, to really become the woman you're ready to be. That's it for this episode. My focus as a midlife coach is to help you get excited about your life again, even now at your age. And that means you have to get better at thinking on purpose, being the queen of your brain domain, supervising your brain, helping yourself create the results and outcomes that you really want in your life. I'm excited to hear all about what you do with this helpful information. Make sure you send me an email at info@suzyrosenstein.com. Check out the show notes with more information and links at www.suzyrosenstein.com. Also, remember to check out my free Facebook group, the Women in the Middle Community, at www.facebook.com/groups/Women in the Middle Community. It's for women just like you. Get your free ebook, 9 Secrets to Get Unstuck in Your 50s, too. That's waiting for you. Just go to www.suzyrosenstein.com/9 secrets, NINESECRETS. And finally, if you like what you've heard on today's episode, just head over to the Women in the Middle podcast on iTunes and leave me a review, which of course is greatly appreciated. It really helps other amazing women in the middle find the podcast and get on their way to loving their life after 50. Let's do this, ladies. One bold, brave, and less confused thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening.